Welcome to mini proposal workshop. And we are using mini proposal templates to ideate on AI tooling for decentralized groups. And today, main discussion will be on proposal costs. So we will be doing sticky notes about the tasks we think this proposal should do. And you will get the context as I move into through the overview side. And if time allows, we also will be using Google Excel to everybody ideate on what they think the time spent to this task is. And this could give us a little interesting insight of different perspectives of where they think the task amount goes into. In the first session, we were like, okay, we want to help provide AI tools for decentralized groups. And then there was like a bunch of ideation on that, where we came down to solution, disseminate or problem statement, disseminating and documenting meetings are time-consuming activities. And we wanted to focus on video and audio resources we are producing. And then the first solution was a quite big one, a sustainable open source community infrastructure that provides an AI tool to automate meeting documentation and retrieve insights. However, with that solution, we had like 4 different components we needed to kind of digest. Dashboard where users interface, and AI bots that compute the power that the information is given, also how it's trained, so that people have on the same page on how these AIs are working and what they're using and how is your privacy and all of that stuff. And final piece is community collaboration. How do we even bring the people and understanding to use the tools, the dashboards, and all the other members that work on similar tools or platforms on their environments and on their communities. So we had a bunch of sessions there. You can also find all these videos in all of these sessions. If you want to go into detail and you're interested in these kinds of discussions. And we came down to the solution that we're going to work on community collaboration. Yeah. Meanwhile, we had also a lot of other chapters like proposal titles, type and taxonomy, stakeholder network. But yeah, we then came to conclusion that this is a quite big scope for mini proposal. So we took this down to the community collaboration and re-advised our solution and problem statement. To open source style platforms that use AI are not being integrated with each other. And our solution is to create community standards on how to introduce interoperable AI features. Yeah, with this, we also actually introduced a bit, because it's an emerging, we are all here in the same room, we have the same thoughts, and then despite this like one chapters, like we created like all kinds of meeting notes. So the board got a little bit more messier. But now if I show you a progress bar, this is where basically we spent. We went through this opening part where we spent time on problem ideation, solution ideation, and twice. And as you can see, like a lot of time was spent on like figuring out where should we actually put our first priority focus. And then after that, we also have been defining success, key performance measures, user experience, proposal roles. And today we will be working on proposal cost and delivery schedule. Yeah, if you move right, then you can see different sessions, some sticky notes. I would say that the best thing to start from probably is to give a little insight into defining success, because now with this solution to create community standards and how to introduce interoperable AI features, the main elements would be to have workshops, to have events, and some partners who already use platforms. And then main thing is to create the standard documentation. And all of them should be kind of interlinked, that we create this documentation together. And here are some risks that come up with that, and we can go into later. Also key performance measurements, like when we took these risks and these outputs we want to have from proposal and brainstormed what kind of measurements they should have. But this also gave an interesting map that we start with standard documentation, which leads into a rule book how the reputation is shared, and the proof of concept how to integrate different open source models. Because the rule book, how do we work together, is very important. Because now let's assume there are developers in this room or people who are watching and want to be part of, like, I want to also have an AI tool. I would like to integrate and create this, be part of the standard documentation. How can I make it simple that from a different community, they could simply click and use my AI tooling and the revenue is shared fairly, whatever that means. But this is important also to be addressed and discussed. How do we share our revenues when we combine our DAO platforms and integrate them each other and also add AI tools on top of that? So when we come together, we basically start doing tasks. We're gonna start out the events from that. And in the events, there are a lot of participants, which are basically part of domain-specific communities or products. And they are basically the people who are going to provide the proof of concept. How do we integrate different platforms? And on the different platforms, we're going to have microservices and use cases, which then is going to be the outreaching method for scaling it up. And in the last session, oh no, actually this wasn't last session, but in the Gimbal Lab session, we also then discussed a bit of user journey. And interestingly enough, we took the first key element we were going down was like what people are interested about when they hear about the standard. And we thought it's having access to your community groups, meeting insights, and basically the way we use our data. So they understand that when they get into our process, they will be already being like educated of how your information is going to be used, where it's located, and how can you improve it. But of course, that's one of many use cases, but we went with one user journey. Then we ideated on proposal roles. I have a bunch of roles here. We didn't go too in depth of reasoning all the roles, but we were able to ideate quite many of these. So today we perhaps also will check on some of these and squeeze out some tasks based on, this role, I assume then it requires these tasks. And this leads to our final chapter, where we are going to ideate on all kinds of tasks people will do for this proposal. And if you have any questions, and I help to ideate also to and see in like next 20 minutes of how many sticky notes we could gather. Let's jump into chapter 10. And first thing, ideate on all kinds of tasks people will do for this proposal. And here we are listing all the resources we need for each of the stage. And we're going to think of all the elements and then we try to cost them. And we should also consider including budget elements for community management, project management, and documentation. So if we are finished and we haven't included any of that, we definitely should. I did some suggestion where we could gather some initial insights. For example, chapter 9, 6, 8, and 7 would give us quite good information. So chapter 9 was the proposal roles. So hearing what I mentioned, what kind of tasks you would come up with when you see these roles and giving the context of creating events and standard documentation for developers and collaboration. What's on your mind? What kind of tasks you think we should already start including? Seeing these roles, what you think that are these activities that we should list?
We take a look a while on it. Yeah, people haven't got an idea right now.
All right, so let me then kick it off with, at the start. So for example, standard documentation, there was a translator for other languages. So one task obviously will be the translating documentation. I'm going to put them on the left side because we're going to move it to the chapter then. Another thing is architect designer, style designer for documentation. So that would be then, I would assume, not assume, but propose to create designs in Microboard because it's the tool I use, but there are definitely other solutions. But then I will be very specific that Microboard designs to show data process movements, for example, design explaining how different products and features are related, project management, then UI designer, basically that is creating visual content, and style designer for documentation. I think even the formatting document to cohesive like or similar style. So anybody wants to continue and tell me what does coordinator do?
Yes.
Although
sure.
even
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, please.
I was thinking maybe project management and coordinator is almost the same thing. Although, or what are your thoughts, guys? Do you feel like coordinator and project manager should be the same thing, or they are different because coordinator just takes care of that, where the people are in participant, they know the information, where it's to get like, where are the events happening, and project manager is more like making sure that the events are happening, but coordinator makes sure that people are coming to these events. So we have stayed here for a little. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy paste this over to our chapter 10 area. Then let's jump into, I'm gonna take this with us. Let's see what we can find from risk sides. So what are the main risks that could prevent you from delivering your project successfully? So we wanted to have multiple open source platforms and tools that are integrated with each other. And our risks were, it's going to require support from both sides to collaborate. And then standard, so we are creating a standard on how to collaborate and what are the expectations. So that is actually a clear deliverable we will be needing. So it's a task basically. Great. Standard documentation for collaboration. And we could also say like a code of conduct is also part of that. Anything else you want to reiterate? For example, some things are too specific. When more requests from same features come from different perspectives, there will be more thought put into this. Features made too complex. Okay, so this is the risk of start off by integrating easier but still highly useful features. Should mention integration, integrating AI tools. Okay, let's say integrate one AI tool, integrate one platform feature with another platform, for example. KPI calls, there is a parallelism, a lot of work can be done, but the value may not be shared fairly. So great. Revenue sharing standards. Create the revenue sharing standard. Let's make it one thing. So one thing we also, when we do tasks, let's try to be like minimum viable first. So although this may all include into like a documentation for collaboration, but who knows? Uneven competition. Have a long, I can't make it open source. Okay. Anybody notice something from risk sides or an output side that we should include as tasks to this proposal? Like what tasks you do when these proposals get funded, basically. Yeah, there's actually a lot of them. Like for example, we could we will create a standard what are interoperable, that are interoperable with Atalabris, because we actually selected Atalabris challenge settings for F10. So let's include this in, for example. Okay, I'm gonna copy paste this over to the chapter then. And shall we go to one more chapter to get even more sticky notes? Or are you ready to step on the second phase of the ideation? Okay, let's see what we can find from chapter 7, KPIs. So it would be extremely easy if we would have done entire table, but because we didn't, we have to basically find the ideas from the sentiments. Okay, so for standard documentation, it's actually quite easy, I think. How often, actually, even including that, how many of the version changes, how many times it's used, how many elements it has. Basically, we would need a person who is collecting KPI information into standard format. How to integrate education, how to manage data, how it should be. And these are all the standard documentation examples. So might as well take these and see what people think, how much it takes to create these guides. A rulebook, how reputation is shared between contribution and developers, and rewards. Somebody has to distribute rewards. So we need, let's call it accountant or a treasury manager to distribute rewards between contributors. Tasks, activities, obviously, this is what we are working on. We're having events. So you created me handy, all of you are experts at creating events. What are the main tasks that come up that you do every time you do these workshops or like these town halls, for example? So actually, the time it takes to facilitate is also a task. Facilitate sessions and like keeping it nice and tidy or progressed. From platforms, what tasks we would expect? Integrations, we kind of mentioned. Microservices, kind of not really. Oh, we have videos as output. Are there any tasks we do or anybody in team does when video is out? Does anybody edit it? So, and should we need it? Video editing. I think a lot of like thumbnails, market information. Yeah, we can go very detailed. So at a high level, let's take these sticky notes from KPIs. Let's move them to here. Okay, we have now a little more sticky notes than before. So I'm going to add them into the Google Sheet. And now definitely let's get into the second part of the session. So what I did here was you can simply highlight all the stickies you want from Microboard. And if you copy paste them on Google Sheet, you get them in nice one row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the link to the Google Sheet. And now everybody who understands the English, or even if he kind of needs to understand English, what's written here. And what we are going to do next is everybody puts their hours, how much they think it will take time to do this activity. And when we say coordinating team with workshops and public events, per event, project management, yeah, that's a hard one. So yeah, and then now the question is how many people of you are gonna do it, because I will actually then create one sheet for everybody, so that you can take like 5 minutes, everybody goes through the list, and then we compare the times. So can we, for example, raise up hands if you want to fill up the Google Sheet? I will then the first page, I'm gonna delete this because you didn't say who is doing it. And now we start. So we have 5 people who wanted to give the hours. So now I'm gonna stop sharing, and the link is in the Zoom, and let's take a few minutes, and when you're done, lower your hand, and then we compare our assumptions that these tasks will take. And some tasks may be unclear, and try to scope it down to the minimum. So when we say like creating events, then it doesn't actually mean like all the events like what we will do, because we don't know how many we're gonna do, but like then one event then. And if it's like video editing, it's not meaning all the videos, but only one video, how much it would take. And if you're confused, you can always ask questions, or alternatively you skip that, or give your best assumptions, because when we later compare all assumptions, we will see discrepancies, and then we can talk about it.
Oh, Thibault, so I see some some sentences start with the question word how. So like you have to integrate.
These were all the documentation. So these were the standard documentation, like it's like paragraphs. Like assume that as a document that tells you how to do that thing.
Oh, got it.
Writing a guide, and then assume how much it takes to research and to create that document, basically.
Okay.
I'm gonna start sharing screen again. I'm going to copy paste all our information to the first page, so we can see all of them. Okay, so what do we see from here? So obviously we went a little bit rushing all of these tasks. Sometimes you will want to, with your team, when you do proposals, spend more time, and even also make sense that you all understand the task the same way before you go estimating hours. But the point here was to kind of give the sense of what we are doing and what the output would look like. So when we look at coordinating team workshops and public events, mostly we are all on the same line, except I am downplaying it. Most of you see the same hours, and Ha actually thinks the coordinating takes 4 hours. So twice as more time than usual. And here it could be a code question points. What does it take? Why does coordinating workshops and events take 4 hours? And we can learn what he thinks or she thinks as when coordinating. Would that be possible for you to describe what went in your mind when you put 4 hours into this first task? Okay, actually, I was assuming Ha will share his experience of why it actually takes 4 hours to coordinate workshops and teams. Because what we want to now to get down to is, do we all agree with her, or like what is our collective choice for these hours? So of course, this is like one method of doing proposal budgeting, but the way we have been also doing it for some proposal is that we agree with all the people participating that, okay, so when you say 4, we say 3, can we meet in the middle way 3, like we say 3 in middle, and because this is going to affect our proposal, and once we get funded from all of that amount, then we don't start like over budgeting for some people and under budgeting to other people, because we kind of pre-agreed on some kind of notion. But okay. Perhaps then we can move on. For the example, the second part, I actually put percent here because it's very hard to estimate project management. Like it wasn't first time clear. Is it event? Are we for project management or creating documentation project management? Like what are we managing? What is that project? And all of these have different time consumption. So yeah, here we probably are quite all over the place, but I'm interested, what AI is Andy thinking when I mention project management, and then you're like, 1 hour is easy.
Okay. Yeah, maybe manage only one event, like one task, maybe like many projects management, so that we can go with 1 hour. Yeah, just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, it was not quite clear for me about the scope of the project itself. So I was thinking when me is saying that, hey, she was actually putting the hours based on like, for example, for the event. So
Yeah.
let's say by the events, every event that we can take just so 1 hour of project management, looking at things, having meeting. So in average is 1 hour for all the events, for each of the event. So yeah, that's why I'm putting there 1 hour, because if we want to see, it's actually better on your way, Tifo, taking 40% of the whole time that going to be spent in the whole the whole series of activities. But then I was not thinking that way. I was just thinking on it's a specific task, then we can take it just like 1 hour for its event or something like that.
Yeah, and there we definitely saw right now that the different, if we don't do this, what is project management, what task it is, we're gonna have totally random numbers, and this was quite clear from here, and this requires more specification. And then now we actually, me and you both added, like, described in these few discussions like 8 tasks or something, like what we could consider under project management, and this is how you can explore more of them. Creating training materials, and creating one training material. Here we also are basically doubling time. Also, Tien, would you share why did you put 10 hours creating one training material, or you thought it's a multiple one? What went your mind?
Yes, I understand that I assume that I create a training material for my sample project, for whole project, not in the per event. Sorry.
Yeah, so a little on clarification. However, for the rest of tools, how did you almost thought the same way, that it's like multiple materials, or for example, I used it as like a single thing, and then I was like estimating one material takes around 4 hours. And to me, a training material is just a documentation and with no videos, no other stuff. So what were your, Andy or me, what were your thoughts of what is a training material?
For me, myself, it's actually just like you said, it's for one training material. So I was thinking about the one training is running for like 1 or 2 hours. Yeah. Whether it's a reading or also a live session, for example. And for those kind of session, then I will estimate like we need at least double the time of preparing the materials. So yeah, I took if one training is about 1 to 2 hours, then I assume that I will need at least 4 hours to do this, to prepare the materials.
Yeah, for me, the training material for me is like doing slide and maybe documentation, no video like that. So I think it's gonna take some time to prepare, and normally maybe maximum or average 4 hours to do once perfectly. Yes.
Yeah, and if we would put me and Andy's work or my work together, then we would actually get hard results. So I would actually say that in this case, even if Tien taught like all materials at once, it sounds like 8 hours to one training material to have this light text, which is more like onboarding, and the document once you have got the initial onboarded, and then you have like a document to reference back to like with more details. So yeah, this will, let's skip to and see what interesting stuff you can find so we don't have to go row by row. Example, this design explaining how different products and features are related. To me, this is like a cool brainstorming activity on Miro board, and it could be done quite effectively. Like first 1 hour is kind of setting the stage, second hour is getting the content down, third hour is moving it around, fourth hour is kind of like finalizing and getting kind of clicked it together. But Ha here shared her thought of 60 hours. I wonder, does she want to share her thoughts?
So she shared that from her understanding, she understand that she should do the market research also as well as the research about the competitor, and also to accumulate all the data. And it's gonna take her around 2 days at least to do this task, like to explain how their product and other product, the differences and the similarities. Like, have to do a lot of more research. Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting insight. Yeah, and that actually went again back to this: how do we understand the task? And she went much harder scope, but these are something that we didn't even think about previously. That we actually should also look at competitions and like comparing what other people are doing products, because when we want to get the standard documentation, we should look at the best practices, and that was a great insight. So thank you for that. Something I see that TN here is dropping the creating visual content. Everybody thinks it's quite easy to do 1-2 hours, but TN says no, this is gonna take 4 hours to me to write that background, draw that one.
I prefer to have a nice document, beautiful document. I think I need more time for that, and in order to audience to see and interested in my document as the first time. So I think I will spend more time to create it.
Yeah. So you're like more thinking like first to standardize the visualizations, getting the color codes right, and then once you have done the first version, the second iteration, third one, they're gonna be faster, but just the initial start, basically. Yeah. To me, I took it quite straightforward. I threw it through the AI, let it spit something out, and slap it to the document. On the side of formatting document to similar style, me is definitely an expert here, formatting documents. I also thought it should be fast, but I never really kind of considered that as a huge task. But I kind of feel like we are all aligned, except Teen again. He wants to kind of make clear sense. What is the format? How can we adopt it to all the other documents, and they all make sense, and taking real time to make it appropriate. And I think it's also okay to actually like step back and think it through. What is the format going to look like for all the documents and going forward? Let's see what we have interesting here. Oh, on integrating one AI tool. I'm actually doing a little bit integrating with ChatGPT now to my tools, and even it used to be taking me 16 hours to kind of do it, or 16, and now it cuts down to getting into 2-4 hours. But it's just the first integration. I get the data, but it doesn't. I have to then start to transform it, move it to the correct databases or in correct formats. So it still takes a lot of time. So I'm wondering, how did you guys were able to, or girls, 1 or 2 hours?
So I have never integrate any AI tool before, so I don't know what it's gonna take. So I just put 1 hour there. Yeah.
Andy, what were you thinking?
Well, I was thinking about the Grow 20 and 21 is actually a AI tool and their platform feature. So I wasn't really understand what is it about, but I was thinking about that. Hey, we have the tools, we have the documentation for sure, and then we'll just look at the documentation and just try here this and that, and it should be done in at around 2 hours for each of the tool, right? And I was assuming that we have many tools, just like you said in the beginning, it will be hard, but as the time progresses, then it should be getting clear, right? So that's I'm trying to put there in average of one tool or one feature. So yeah, I think it's one at average it will be just like that. So yeah, that's my reasoning, I think.
Well, quite interesting. Yeah. Well, it was a little bit, again, unclear, the specifications, but then again, these differences, I would say these things will require a bit of more discussions to get like a collective hour together, and wasn't that clear cut where and other ones, but yep, that's great one. Let's see what we have. We have some confusing ones here. Some people don't put hours. But for example, how to integrate, how to manage data. All of these are standard documentation. And interestingly, this time now I'm the ones who's saying, well, let's take down to create this document. And all of you are like, yeah, this is easy. We can write it. We have ChatGPT now. I haven't really used it yet, but what's your thoughts here? Any of you? Because your team is totally aligned on ours. I'm just here like messing it up.
Well, from my personal view, I think it's something that it's not really something that we are used to do, and we don't really understand what we need to do. Yeah, that's why I think most of us is just giving 1 or 2 hours, right? So I think it started because we don't really understand the scope of work that we need to do there. So we just think about, hey, it should not be too long because it will take too many hours that we spend there. But then, yeah, maybe we miss on the calculation because we just never did it before. So yeah, that's I think that's my point of view.
But that's a good point, having like a scope to understand what needs to go into the documentation, and that could actually then increase the expected hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Do we agree? Almost agreed on creating a timeline, except Teen. He's like, even timeline takes a little bit more time because I need to that part there. So this was actually also facilitate sessions. This is a confusing part because to me the facilitation happens only in the meeting, and usually meetings are 1-2 hours. So is TN thinking is still here? He's still here, but he's off camera. I wonder, can he give the final comment on why he thinks it takes 6 hours, or he's like thinking like full-blown events here, or he has something different that we didn't think about?
I think he put something in chat that he's coming back soon.
Then, well, this mystery will be unsolved, and perhaps the audience can crack this one. So yeah, I'm gonna now jump back to the whiteboard because we were able to completely do this chapter 9, at least have the practice and feeling how it goes, how it works. And the final basically session overview, I will say that was a bit of a session overview. We were able to collect different sticky notes from different places when you do a full-blown proposal and you really dig into different chapters, problem statements, solution statements, KPIs, stakeholders. And then when you get to this final stage, which is most daunting one, that, okay, how much our activities then gonna cost? What should we ask from the community or the company or whoever you are proposing it? then getting this ideation list and bringing all the sticky notes into one place, having this discussion and context understanding. Sometimes it's even fine, like we did, like just getting first sticky notes, slapping them all onto Google Sheet and trying to figure out, because through this, we already kind of figured out, oh, where we have to refine. And then you do even more sticky notes, you then dump it again into Google Sheet, you then estimate, and finally you're gonna get this team consensus, and then you will get the budget cost, and that can be put into proposal. But overall, do you have any questions, any insights you want to share, what you learned, or before we close it off?
So from my perspective, I think this is a very great way to work together with everyone, because we do a lot of group work in Eastern Town Hall, and we have never do this before. So normally we go like, we have a one Google spreadsheet, and we have like the blank, just like what we did, but we didn't do it individually. We put it there, and anybody want to add up something, they make a note next to it. It should it be exchange or something, and we conclude it together. But I think this is a much effective way to do group working. It's going to save time. We have a data that recorded, so that we know from the beginning what did we do. Yes, and I think this is a very great workshop, and thank you so much, Thibault.
Oh no, I didn't raise my hand. I just give you this one. The thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
Dạ, các anh chị mình có chia sẻ gì với Thibault không ạ? Có thể chia sẻ với anh. Thì mọi người có thể xem lại tất cả những cái workshop khác ở trên cái đường link micro, thì phía trên góc trái của cái micro này có một số cái link video workshop mà anh đã thực hiện, mọi người có thể xem lại ạ.
And Mystery Man is there. Do you want to say something? You opened your mic. And...
Hi, Thibault. I cannot attend few last minute of your sharing, but I have a question here. When you have the data, the time we estimate for individual tasks, and then how you use AI, or what do you do with such data?
And actually, we do the same thing we just did here. We go through these numbers, and you're trying to look for like alignment. So in the first row, we're actually quite aligned here. Okay, 2-1 hours, not many differences, and we can basically and you basically discuss like, should we put the highest number here presented, or find the middle ground, and that's kind of helps to kind of create a team understanding of where this, how much basically money will be given to this activity. And of course, this doesn't yet describe how many times we should do it. So that's another thing, like, okay, we do a coordinate team, but how many events we're gonna have? Do we have 10, 20? And that's a different thing. We can start collecting data. And when you see like big jumps, like TM mentions here, 10, creating materials, I see 4, this is a great like conversation topic. So why do you think it's a 10? Why do you think it's a smaller number? And basically, this data is used for conversations, because it kind of gives you the heat map of where are the like differences, and the differences are great. And if it's everything is same, then it's just great way to see that entire team is aligned. And if the more granular the tasks go, the more detailed they are, the more people understand the same thing. Usually they are gonna get more aligned, and then you can start skipping. And if you do more than just one proposal, and you actually work on it for quite some time, and you constantly do proposals together, then it's actually, this data will be easily reusable, because all of this is modular data. The more you do it this kind of way, you can start, because for example, this is events and workshops, but Mitran was able to give her experience from facilitating these kinds of Eastern town halls and breakout rooms, and what she is using. And if you do it well, that you put deep think on all the content and tasks, you can put this into different proposals also. So that's cross using that information.
Thank you for that. I understood what did you do.
Okay, thanks for joining. Thanks for helping me out and ideating proposal with me.
Thank you, and I'm waiting for your next mini proposal workshop that you just mentioned. And thank you so much. Thank you again for your contribution to the community. Thank you.